everyone, welcome to the another exciting episode of 10x Growth Strategies podcast. I'm your host Arthi Vijayaraghavan, a product leader, an avid reader, and a book lover. We're going to be discussing a very impactful book called Take Back Your Power by Deborah Liu with our guest Ms.Laura Dansbury. Laura is a passionate product leader diving in and making a difference across the product lifecycle. She's been part of product-centric, mission-driven companies for over 15 plus years. She's currently VP of Product at Study.com, a leading online learning platform helping over 30 million learners and educators. She's been one of my mentors over the years, coaching and mentoring women in tech to take back their power as well. Thank you, Laura, and let's dive in and discuss the book, Take Back Your Power. So happy to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So what has been the impact of the book on your life and career, and why did you choose the book?
You know, it's really interesting. When I only came up, I met this book, so to speak. I was introduced to this book at a conference only a couple of months ago. Oh. It was a conference that was a founding conference of a new organization called Women of Wisdom. And it was organized by Elena Krasnoporova, who was the former VP of Analytics at Facebook. And she included this as one of our conference materials. So I chose this book because, first of all, the book had been discussed at the conference and recommended by Elena. But so many people at the conference talked about how impactful the book was to them. So I knew that it was something that I definitely wanted to read. Okay. What's really interesting is I read most of the book on the train going to and from work. So I'd have the opportunity to read a couple chapters and then reflect on either the day in front of me or more frequently the day that I had just had. And at the end of the day, think about things that had happened at my office and how it related to what I just read. Nice. And then that led to thinking back more about my time at LinkedIn, my time at Ancestry, and even some of my earliest days in Silicon Valley.
Nice. That's very interesting, actually. I remember it's very similar to what I do with books. Like, it's not just reading it also, right? It's like I love to read and then I love to walk. So I read a book and then in my walks, that's when I actually think about what I am, what did I take away, or some musings from the book, actually. So based on it, like, what does power mean to you and how do you define it? So that's a very different concept coming in from different cultures, backgrounds, and stuff. So what's your take on it?
Well, you know, it's interesting because Deb talks in the title about like how this title was designed to make people kind of cringe a little bit. That this title in and of itself, you think, oh, because it has some negative connotation. And she talked about how it really just means the ability to influence people or to derive events. But I think there's a little more to it. And after I read the definition online myself, I noticed two more things. One was a reference to physics and measuring units of work. And the second was the sort of relationship to energy and measuring units of power. And I thought, wow, that's really interesting because you can apply that back to personal power. And it's really about the energy someone brings to a situation or to a relationship. And you can also sort of measure your personal power and your ability to do work or influence others to do work. So I saw this really sort of magical sort of way of thinking about power sort of across both the human power piece and how it relates to other ways we measure what's called power. I think for me, I had a little bit of that negative connotation at first, as well as positive. Mm-hmm. And I think ultimately what it means for me is energy, belief, motivation, and then some either expertise or willingness to learn quickly tossed into the mix. Yeah. Like, that's how I would define power.
Yeah. That's actually very nicely put. And I really like the last part as well, right? Even with power, you also have to be always willing to learn and grow
Mhm.
as well. I think that showcases mindset change as well, and moves power from a negative to a positive, more positive connotation also.
Well, it also has to do with how long your power lasts. Because if
Mm-hmm.
you're not willing to learn, then it's pretty unlikely that power will be sustained.
Yeah.
Because everything is, always changing, the world is evolving, and for you to sustain that influence, that energy, that motivation, it does mean that you have to be learning.
Yep. Yeah. So the what did you think about revoke all your free passes? So I wanted to share an anecdote as well, right? As an immigrant, I had a lot of restrictions regarding jobs and the employers and all that stuff. So I excused myself from situations and I've attributed everything to non-risky behaviors because I was on a visa.
Hmm.
And once you have that habit, or once you get into that mode, you don't even realize that you're in that mode actually. Even after you are like, you are in a green card situation as well, you don't change that easily. And being a woman, I think I didn't even realize that I was giving out free passes till I actually read the book, and I was like, oh, maybe that's what I was doing. So did you have that kind of an epiphany going on, or what did you take away from that free passes? Have you given out, and have you
Oh
taken
yeah.
it back now?
Oh yeah. The free pass chapter was particularly difficult. I had to put it down a couple times because it kind of felt like a slap in the face. And I mean a wake-up slap because it's so crystallized what is so easy to do, which is, give yourself the out, give yourself the excuse to not do something that's scary or intimidating or hard, and to rationalize it. And even more, you can call it self-care. I'm not doing the thing because I'm taking care of myself. I don't want to aggravate my nerves, or I've already done too much this week, or whatever, right? And this kind of laid all of that mental gymnastics bare and said, no, no, that it's giving yourself a free pass. And it's not helping anything. You can't fool yourself forever. And this book, I think, ended that forever. So like Deb, I am an introvert. So I have a tendency to give myself a free pass from leaning into some social situations, and particularly professional social situations where people are all strangers, or where I've got less knowledge of a situation, less knowledge and expertise or experience in that field or whatever like that. Um, and I had to sit with that for quite a bit after reading that chapter. Um, a small example of me overcoming that, however, I wanted to share is this Women of Wisdom conference that I went to a few months ago. I had to give up several things that were important to me on a personal side in order to go to that conference.
Yeah,
And
wow.
I walked in saying, I am not going to just go and listen and go home. I'm going to fully participate in every piece of this event. I'm going to raise my hand and ask question after question. And I'm going to, get the most out of it, lean into making connections with people that I don't know. And I was so happy at the end of that weekend that I had done that, and I had pushed myself to not give myself a free pass. So I think the other thing that comes from revoking your free passes is you're much happier with yourself.
Yeah.
You're proud of yourself. You can see that even if it went bad, well, as Deb said, you're going to fail at everything you don't try, but there's a good chance that what you do try, even if it's not a perfect success, it'll be more successful than never having tried.
Yeah.
So, I mean, going to a conference and networking is not that hard, but it's just a small illustration of revoking a free pass. The other one actually is this podcast. This is not something I would typically do. But when I thought about it, I was like, well, there's really no good reason to say no, and there are many good reasons to say yes. So I said yes.
Okay, that's really good story actually, and I for me when I read that Revoking the Pre-Pass book, it was very similar to your experience, right? One, it opened an eye onto what I was doing unconsciously, actually. So it's like you don't realize that these are free passes. You're giving yourself away. So that's kind of that was one thing, and the other thing was also she set small goals, like how you said, I'm going to go to a conference and ask questions. So it's like a measurable small goal which you can definitely achieve it, or you can push yourself to achieve it, and you'll feel happy about that at the end of it. So it's like that aspect of doing that micro nudges to change yourself as well. From my experience, what I did for the free pass, I would say, is uh, I I'm a very homebody, so I don't go out in the evenings to meet or network people. So when I moved to Austin 2 years back from the Bay Area, I made a conscious effort saying, "Hey, I am going to form a network of people whom, at least women, whom I want to meet on a regular basis, at least monthly basis, and I am going to spearhead something." So that was one thing I did, and I think over the past 2 years, I've been intentional about meeting people on a deeper level rather than just saying hello and not knowing how to keep up the connection actually. So I think that is something which I've changed in the last 2 years because of all the things which I've been learning and meeting people. So that would be something which I would say as a free pass.
So what have you gotten out of that? Can you say a little bit more about, you've pushed yourself, so you're happy, but what's been the reward of that?
Just being happy is the reward of it, right?
Mhm.
So it's the most important thing is for me it's like it inherently I didn't realize how much of confidence I had and how much it I could do more, and that is one thing which was really rewarding. And it's like I felt good at the end of the day, even if I do a small thing where it's like, I'm asking someone to read something or connecting them to someone else, or giving a piece of information which I read, I felt happy about it. So, and also I felt as though I was being useful to that connection, and
Mhm.
it showcased our relationship in a better light, and helped me keep in touch with more people actually. So it's like, and I've become a constant learner because of that. So we all learned through different ways. So it's like I never realized, I think all of these things, when you have these conversations or a deeper level of conversations with people, then you realize what other aspects of things you can learn. It's not just technology, or it's not just leadership or product building. You can learn so many small things in life which can change the way you live actually, and you become more empathetic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. The empathy piece is something which ultimately heartwarms you. So yeah.
I agree.
And obviously, I told you about being an immigrant and stuff. So the other thing is like the community of women and the community of people form foundations at home, right? It's so critical for all of us to actually thrive in anything we do, not just career, right? Even taking care of your house or taking care of your children, all of that. I totally believe in it, and to I owe my career to many women who've supported me through the years, including my mother-in-law. They were being the pillars for me both always. And I've had so many women in Foster City who took care of my children, home daycare, friends who used to drop, pick up from school, all of that. And, women like you who also understood, even at work, if I have to drop and go off, flexibility, and male mentors as well. One of the
I
mentors.
do.
So yeah, so for a woman to be successful and still is it's like still there are so much support needed, right? So what's your take on it, and how did you build your own support network?
Yeah, I guess I want to go sort of back a little bit before I answer that. Um, Deb talked about in the book moving to the Deep South from the North and being an outsider, and how much that influenced both how she viewed the world, and her you know, willingness to fight for her future. And she talked about how that also caused her to sort of harbor some grudges and some pain that it took her a while to let
Yeah.
go of. And it gets to the support network in a roundabout way. But I thought about how much I resonated with that because I too moved to the Deep South when I was about 8 and was quite an outsider. And I didn't even quite understand because I couldn't see it myself. I looked like everyone else, but I sounded different. And I moved when I was 8. And even in college at Georgia Tech, my roommate, who was a great friend, but she would introduce me as her Yankee roommate, calling out my differences. And sort of that feeling of being different can really get in the way of forming a support network, of building the feeling of safety and building a support network. And so I think, when you sort of go back to the foundations, one of the most important thing is either to find or build or nourish the support networks that you do have. Because it's that feeling of safety that lets you then take risks.
Yeah.
So I really strongly believe in the power of a strong support network. It doesn't need to be just women, but that safety is why you need that network. And it's also one of the most powerful things that you can give to someone else is that support network and being part of their support network. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing I was thinking about is when I read this was the importance of your family. You were talking about your mom and your mother-in-law. Deb didn't speak too much in her book about her family. She did mention that her mom said something about she was lucky her dad didn't mind having girls. And she talked about, basically being taught to not stand out, not make waves, to be nice. But overall, I had the sense that she felt loved and supported in her family. And she absolutely addressed how much love and support she's gotten from her husband.
Yeah.
And so I have thought about just how much I want to acknowledge in my personal life, with real words when I'm talking to my family, how much I want to say the words, not just think about it, but say the words about, I appreciate when you did X to support me. And, I can see how it led to other things. So I think acknowledging the support is a really important thing. On the professional side, I've joined a few support networks over the years. I joined Women in Product many years ago, close to when it began. And I have to say, some of the first conferences, you never would have known that they were put together on a shoestring and casually because they felt so professional from the very beginning. During COVID, when everyone was so isolated, I joined Lisa Kostova's career climb community. And that was very helpful as I tried to figure out what was going to be next for my career because I took some time off to take care of family. So today I'm part of the Athena Alliance as well as the Women of Wisdom group. And I'm finding great inspiration and motivation and opportunities to learn, sort of exactly the way you were talking about earlier. Not just empathy, but access to worlds that I'm not part of, and just hearing about what's going on in those worlds. Like I recently went to a group event about thinking about finances and your personal finances from an empowerment perspective of how do you deal with any baggage you have around money and how do you turn it into a source of power so you can do the things that you want, not about buying things, but about turning it into a lever for life growth and fulfillment.
Yeah.
And one of the speakers was the daughter of Charles Schwab. So she has definitely seen a very different side of money and finances.
Yeah.
And she's devoted a good part of her career to empowering women and empowering them for their financial awareness and education so that they can make smart choices. And that's just a world that, I haven't been exposed to before.
Yeah.
A couple other things
Sure.
I was
Go
thinking
ahead. Go
about.
ahead. It's very
Yeah,
interesting.
my initial days at Ancestry. So I worked at Ancestry for about 7 years.
Hmm.
And my initial days were really helped by a woman named Ann Mitchell. She
Okay.
was one of the first product managers there. And I joined a team that she was on. And I remember her taking me around to the engineers and saying, "You're going to love working with Laura. She's cool." And just giving me that level of endorsement made a massive difference in how I felt about starting at Ancestry.
Hmm.
And I think really my entire future career at Ancestry, because I had that positive endorsement and someone sort of just smoothing the way a little bit in your first, few weeks when everything feels scary and new. And then the other person that comes to mind for me is Doris O'Brien.
Okay.
I first met her at Cafe Press,
Hmm.
and she was the head of HR or HR recruiting, but she also went on to Ancestry, and she's been an advocate and a mentor for me for almost my entire career in Silicon Valley.
Nice.
And I could keep going and naming names, but those are just a few that I wanted to recognize of what an impact they've had for me.
That's so nice actually. Like I'm so happy about the organizations you mentioned. I'll talk to you and make sure that we make them available in the show notes for the others as well. As you were describing, there were two things which I wanted to share actually. Like the one thing which you were saying, like, I got support from so many people, and then I give out the support now to different people. So this is an anecdote from one of my cousins. As I was going through a lot of different things in my life, I've received, like you said, I've received so much of support and love from when we had a lot of health situations or difficult situations in my life. And I used to ponder, like, how will I ever repay back to these people who are being so selfless and helping me and supporting me. So one of my cousins and also my aunt's philosophy is like, don't ever think that you need to repay back to the same person who gave you that support. In fact, pray that they don't need that kind of a support, right? Because it might be a life situation or a health situation. You should pray for their well-being, but you should give back that support to someone else who's more in need. So that is how you should look at it. Like whenever you get a support or a help from someone, it is more about you recognizing that, and the way to pay it forward or being thankful is to provide that support to someone else who's more in need, giving a better helping hand for the person in need. That is one thing which really resonated when you said, I started giving out support to other people. And the other thing about your boss at Ancestry, right? She didn't know anything much about you. You have not done great things at Ancestry yet, and she still had the confidence. So there's an Indian movie in which, typically a daughter-in-law gets married into a household. The mother-in-law is pretty strict, and she's like, usually she's a daunting character to try and prove if this girl is good enough. But then in this movie, the way they showcase it is that grandmother-in-law invites people to see the new bride at home. And she said, this girl made us so much of a dinner, which everyone loved, and they all just ate everything. There was nothing left over and all that stuff. And then this bride was like very uncomfortable. And after they left, they said, Grandma, you were saying that I made the dinner. I didn't even go inside the kitchen. I didn't know anything. I don't even know cooking. How are you saying all that? Then the grandma says, if I don't promote you, if I don't say good things about a new person who's coming in, who is going to do that? Right? So I need to build this image or brand for you so that you get the confidence and do great things. this is not rocket science, which you cannot learn. So I have the confidence. By showing that, I'm showing confidence in you. So you're going to go do great things. So that's the kind of the impact she did. So that kind of small supports is what you need in life.
I
And
totally agree. Yes.
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure after you met them, like even without knowing anything about the product, your engineering team is like, okay, Laura is awesome. She's going to do great things. And that motivated you and it made you learn more, I'm sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anne was a colleague, not my boss, but the story is absolutely similar to
Yeah.
what you shared. Yes. And it's led to a lifelong friendship as well.
Yeah.
So both career support and personal
And personal
support.
support. Yeah. 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 So another thing, so reverse engineer your legacy. So have you built it out? So what's your legacy going to be? Or are you
This
still building it?
yes, yeah, absolutely still building it. This is uh almost a terrible and awesome question all at the same time. Uh, it's I've thought and been asked on multiple places in my life to think about, writing my obituary. And just the idea of doing so is, kind of like a showstopper. It's really hard to think about that and then back into the milestones you want in your life because starting from the end just feels like such a intimidating thing. And I've tried it a few times, and I've really struggled. uh, I've written my will, I've written my living trust, I've written my end of life wishes, but actually writing my legacy or my obituary or something like that is absolutely still a challenge. Um, so I certainly hope that most of the people that I've impacted personally and professionally, those impacts have been positive. Um, Certainly, I've tried to make my impact positive and motivating and something that left people better than when they met me. And I have immense gratitude for the help and the support and all the lucky breaks in my life. Um, I, I I really believe in doing your best to be brave, to be honorable, to be dependable, to be supportive, and to be kind. Um, and if people say that about me after I'm gone, then I think that would be an absolutely wonderful legacy. Um, but writing my own legacy, no, that has not been something I've been able to do.
Yeah, nice, nice. Like, but I'm sure you're headed in the right path, or you have the framework at least defined. You're going towards it then. So,
What about you?
um, I think it's mostly most of the things what you said. Uh, I don't have it yet. I don't. Maybe it's a question of thinking about maybe I'm too insignificant to even think about in terms of the word like legacy. Like legacy feels as though it's for people who've done greater things in life. Like
Arthi, is that a free pass?
that's true. Actually, thank you for catching me on the free pass.
You just said it was
So
for others.
yeah, I know. So yeah, like the I was just telling my kids today actually. So it's like one legacy which I hope to do someday is right now my focus is on the two people whom I brought to the world or at least I was instrumental in getting to the world. So once I make them at least self-sufficient on their own, then I want to focus on more on actually sharing, mentoring and coaching kids. I don't think I can coach very young kids, but I want to. It's not like I want to coach or mentor a subject like physics, math, or something like that, but rather I just want to be there as someone whom they can bounce off ideas with and ask questions on, like, hey, how do I think about things? That's what I want to do, where whichever place I am. So, in a small way, if I do that, I think I'll be happy. So, and if I build one product and go to which is very useful, and go to IPO. That's my next legacy. So that's one thing. I know I've gone to a couple of acquisitions. I have to do the IPO bit also once in life. Someday I'll do that. So that's two like professional and personal things which I have so far. So
I'm sure that you're going to do both. I have no doubt.
yeah,
On the coaching side, that one, feels very doable in the sense that such small actions can actually be incredibly impactful and meaningful.
sure.
I was thinking about years ago, I taught English as a second language as a volunteer
Mm-hmm.
at a church. And I asked my students because they didn't like the curriculum we were supposed to be teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, well, what do you want to learn? We'll do that instead.
Mm-hmm.
And one man told me that he wanted to learn to be able to call up on the phone. This is before the internet was widespread. He wanted to be able to call on the phone and order a pizza so that his wife wouldn't have to cook every night. That was his goal. But he didn't have the English language skills to do that on the phone. And so we had the entire class practice ordering pizza on the phone. And I saw him a month or so later at the mall with his wife. And they were able to tell me about ordering pizza, that he had done it. He had fulfilled his dream to help his wife out. So it was a very small effort on my part to rehearse ordering a pizza, and it brought a lot of happiness.
Yeah, that's such a great story, right? Like you don't need a huge curriculum or anything, just practical knowledge and also giving it at the right place at the right time. So yeah. And when you asked me about the legacy and a free pass, right? I was talking to one of my mentors. I was going through a job transition, and so I was talking to a lot of people. And one of my previous, colleague whom I had met, he's a CFO. He was a CFO at Ojo, Naveed Tejani. When I mentor, like he asked me, "What's your long-term goal?" I'm like, "I want to do coaching and mentoring." The first thing he asked me is, "What is stopping you from doing it now?" So it's
Mm,
like, start doing it now. Do you have a lot of things to share? So just start now. There's nothing which is stopping you from doing it. So do it now. So that was the first thing he asked me. So, and you need such advocates and folks who stop you from giving out free passes as well.
mhm.
Yeah. So finding your voice and getting comfortable, obviously sharing your knowledge and expertise. Uh, when I started even this podcast, right? So I was like, Preeti started this podcast, and I just asked her, and she's like, why can't you co-host it? So I was like, do you think I can actually? And she was like, you can find your voice, just do it and see how it takes you. So, your voice is how you expand your current role and build meaningful network and establish yourself as a thought leader as well. So how did you do it, and what are your tips on, branding or thought leadership?
Well, I would say I'm still doing it.
Yeah, that's a
It's
great.
absolutely a work in progress. And I think it's a life work
Hmm.
because the voice that you have evolves, the message you have to share changes, and the challenges of where do you share that also changes. But I just led a lunch and learn at my office a few days ago. Um, a couple of the panelists told me that they were really nervous, and I shared a tip with them that has worked well for me,
Hmm.
which is to think of myself as a teacher. So when you think of your voice in that way, that you're teaching people what you see, it can really help you sort of overcome any fear, but also get clarity on what you want to share.
Hmm.
And people don't have to agree with you, but if you're thinking about just helping them see your unique vision, you're probably going to influence them a little bit. And influencing another's perspective is absolutely the definition of power.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's sort of one thought. Um, I mentioned Lisa Kostova's career climb community.
Hmm.
When I joined that in the COVID time, um, she was really pushing us to express our voice publicly. And we talked about not just like giving big presentations, but opportunities to write, even
Mhm.
small opportunities like commenting regularly on the LinkedIn posts or the blog posts or the Substack posts of people that you admire and people that you follow.
Mhm.
We talked about signing up for panel discussions at the Women in Product Conference rather than giving a presentation, but doing a panel conference can be less intimidating.
Yeah.
Um, we talked about writing a newsletter. Deb did her first newsletters just for her company, not public. So I think the thing about it that all these experiences have worked for me is I've tried them all, and there hasn't been a particular thing that has been my way. But what has turned out to be my way is rotating through and trying each of these a little bit, so that I have a portfolio of things that I've tried and learned from. Um, and then another ancestry story, actually. Bill Yetman was a colleague and friend and VP at Ancestry. And he once told me something after a meeting. He said, Laura, you don't understand the power and the influence of your voice. Um, you don't understand the impact that your words are having on others.
Mhm.
And I've often thought about that. And I've tried to make sure that my influence was positive and helpful. My feedback might be
Yeah.
critical.
Mhm.
It might be talking about something that is not working or is broken or whatever. But I try to create a positive impact. The intent I bring to the moment, and my reflections afterwards are always around, did I try did I try to make a positive impact and did it land? And if it didn't, do I need to try again?
Mhm.
And so I think a big part of, branding and thought leadership is getting really clear on your voice, your story, and your intent, and then leading from that intent.
Nice, nice. I like the way you first started off saying your voice, you're still finding it and it's keeping on growing. I think it's like from your stories, it grows in different ways, like tonality and how do you actually provide feedback, the messaging, all of that keeps growing. And I think the one part I feel now is there's so much of mediums, as you pointed out. You can do so many things like commenting on, say, LinkedIn post showcases that your knowledge as well, and also trying to actually take a discussion forward. Maybe someone else will reply on it and you will learn something which you didn't know about it. And writing, actually, that is something which I have been doing in the past year. So I read books, so I started writing on Substack, just book musings,
Mhm.
depending on which books I like. And You shared your ancestry story, so I have to share one story in which you were part of it. So I know you came from a design background, and at Moto, if you remember or not, I had built an agent facing application,
Mhm.
and I had a product review with you.
Yeah.
So, so I remember it very well, actually. So I came from an engineering background, and I had worked with designers a lot in Philips. But I don't think anybody coached me how to look at it from a usability perspective, right? So when you saw the product, you were impressed by at least the information architecture and stuff like that. But the questions you asked me were like, how are people going to go from here to there? Why would they want to go? Why do you think they need to click and go? So that was the first way I actually learned about usability. And even though I was like, I did beat myself up a little bit saying, Laura didn't like my product, but at the same time, you know stepping back, it helped me to understand it's not just making things pretty, it's making things usable, and also looking at the user journey in a product. what do they
Yes.
want to do, and how can they get to it actually. So you did teach me with your voice at some point. So
I have you passed that forward now that you've been the head of product? Have you found
uh
yourself
yeah.
having similar feedback?
Yes, I have given similar feedback. Like I have one of I work with a very good designer who's actually doing great work with Creati right now. So she was part of my team, and the like I just enjoyed working. Like I think that shifted my thing, and designers are one cohort of people now I enjoy working with, especially when we just sit and whiteboard on how should things look like, or why should we place a button here, what is the point in giving this information,
Mhm.
right? And if you make things blinking, like, do we need to make it blinking, do we make it blinking always, all of those kind of things. So it has definitely helped me learn about that thing, and also understand user research and user experience journeys more.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Like yeah, I would recommend for all our listeners one thing. This book has a lot of very good quotes actually.
Mhm.
And they are, even if you read all the anecdotes, the stories helps you retain them. But there are some like gems in that book, and one of the gems was, you do not choose what happens to you, but you have the power to choose how you are affected by it, right? So even the story I shared with you about the critical product review, yes, it was critical, but then I really learned a lot from it, right? So it's like, I would like to hear a story from your life, any setback from your career, how you handled it, and what did you learn from it. So it's like, how do you react to situation is much more important than the
Mhm.
situation happening to you. So
Mhm. Um, so do you know the parable of the Chinese farmer?
no.
Um, so it's a parable that illustrates that it's difficult to predict life's twists and turns, and that events that seem fortunate can actually be unfortunate, and things that seem the opposite. Um, so the way that the basic story goes, and I'm going to actually bring up a page for a second,
Mhm.
is that there's a farmer, and one day his son leaves the gate open, and the horse escapes.
Yeah.
And everyone says, "Oh, that's terrible. Now you won't have an animal to help you plow your farm." And then um, something else happens, and his son has his leg broken. And again, the friends and family say, "Oh, that's terrible. You now don't have your son to help you out on the farm." But then the army comes to recruit all the men who are healthy to come fight in the army. His leg is broken, so he's not taken. And it goes back and forth. And at each of these events, the farmer's like, maybe it's tragic, or maybe it's not. Who knows? And as each sort of life-changing shock occurs, he has this, well, let's not think about this of future gain or loss, and um, this is temporary because we never really know how things
Mhm.
are going to turn out.
Yeah.
And I think that ties really nicely to you don't choose what happens to you, but you have the power to choose how you react. Even when things that you think clearly are bad happen, you
Hmm.
don't actually know
Yeah.
if they really are going to lead to bad things or good things. And you
Hmm.
might not just be grateful that that bad thing happened. The car broke down in front of the place that you were meant to move into or whatever. So years ago, I joined Cafe Press to do
Hmm.
SEO. And I had to take I think a bit of a pay cut. This was my first startup. It was not a great fit. I was not happy there. But I decided I was going to stick it out for a year, at least, and give it a chance. One of my tendencies is to be stubborn and not give up. Um, anyway, in the process of that year, I met the woman I mentioned earlier, Doris O'Brien. She
Hmm.
was the head of HR for Cafe Press. she left before I did and went to Ancestry. And she was the lead recruiter for Ancestry. So when I started looking around at the end of my first year at Cafe Press, because I didn't like it and it wasn't a great fit, I saw a job that she had posted on LinkedIn. And so I messaged her and said that I was interested in it. And she said, well, Laura, you're not a product manager. And I said, oh, yes, I am. I haven't had that title, but I've done all the things. And so she opened the door for me to get an interview at Ancestry. And that led to really an incredible 7-year run at Ancestry.
Nice.
So was going to Cafe Press bad? Was it a misfortune? It was an unhappy year, but it led to an entire product career and a great run at Ancestry. So you never really know if an individual event is good or bad. So I think that is the motivation to choose how you react rather than focus on the thing that happened itself and whether it was good or bad, because you just don't know. But what you can do is choose how you react and try always to be striving for positive impact, for growth, for learning, because that is the one thing that you can count on that will lead to a better chance in your future.
Yeah.
Whatever the thing is that happens next.
That's so true, actually. And the way you had surfaced it, I think it reminded me about another book actually called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Yes.
And that is the philosophy which he promotes as well, saying, don't think that things are happening to you. Rather, yes, they're happening. Figure out what, give yourself some grace and time, and then figure out that, okay, what can I learn from this situation? And then you're going to come out as a better person at the end of it. So it's a really great book, which goes deep into the philosophy in a much more grotesque and a horrible situation from which Dr. Viktor Frankl himself came out of. So, and one of my friends, it's like anytime she tells me that anytime I feel down or blue, and I call and clip her, and she's like, take that book and read it now.
Yes.
She's like, read couple of excerpts from that and then you'll feel better, which is so true, actually. So yeah, it's like, how do you experience it? And you need these reminders to constantly do that as well to yourself, saying like, don't think that things are happening to you. How do you showcase and how do you show up is what matters. So yeah.
I totally agree. And it is a fantastic book.
Yeah. Okay. Any other, final thoughts you want to share towards the end of the show? Actually, I think it's been a great discussion, sharing amazing anecdotes, mentioning people, and I think we mentioned a couple of extra books as well, which have been impacting our lives also, along with the book Take Back Your Power.
I have the book in front of me, and I don't know about you, but I bookmarked and tabbed and underlined like
wow.
so many things. I don't know if you can sort of see all the things there. That I don't know where I would start of like a last closing thought on the book, but nonetheless, there is one that I really liked because this one is so actionable. So I guess I will close with
Great
this thought.
takeaway. Yeah.
It's rule number 6, develop allies. And the quote from Ecclesiastes actually is, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. And that, I thought, is such a roadmap for taking back your power. And it gets to the support network that we talked about as well. If you can find an ally or you can be an ally, that is the first step to taking back your power. Because once you've got 2 people you've supported and built a relationship with, you are so much more powerful. You have more energy, you have the safety, and you can do that. You may not be able to, influence your entire company tomorrow, but you can definitely find an ally or 2 and be an ally to a couple people. And that power, that can become a tsunami of power and positive impact if everyone just takes that small step.
Yeah, that's so true. Actually, allyship is the most critical thing, and which you can take and give out so easily, and be impactful in other people's both lives and careers. It's not just career. So, thank you. That was a great takeaway, and it's been very interesting. So, I learned a lot, and in a way, I was also able to share some of my own experiences as well. So. Thank you, listeners. Please check out the book Take Back Your Power by Deborah Liu. We'll also give the rest of the organizations mentioned by Laura in the show notes. Until next time, this is your host, Arthi Vijayaraghavan from 10x Growth Strategies. Keep listening, keep reading, growing with us. Thank you. Bye-bye.